Welcome back to
Hello and
What
good
About
evening.
It?
Yes.
Chris, you go first. By all means, go
Okay.
first.
I very much welcome you to this Y live stream on a day where we woke up to news that we just really didn't want to see. First of all, we would like to introduce ourselves. We are Cris and Zack. We are writers on the Y team, and last week we started with our live streaming. There were a lot of technical problems, but they were more internet related than space related. So we're really happy to be back today and to talk about what went on last night. Because instead of having a static fire, we had a huge, very dynamic fire.
We had a fire, just not the kind of fire that the SpaceX engineers were hoping to test. This one lasted longer for a little more than 60 seconds. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah, it definitely was the longest static fire we had so far, and by far the most
Yeah.
destructive one.
And we have some pictures we're going to share here and go over some of the damage from Massey's test site. Chris, I mean, how did you feel when you first heard the news this morning? I kind of thought it was a joke, and then I realized it wasn't. So curious to know how you felt when you first saw it.
Actually, the first thing I saw was moving pictures. I was literally watching it live, and it just looked so terrible. There was like no moment of it being a joke. It was so immediate and so brutal that yeah, it really shocked me, and I was starting to think about what could have happened, especially since this did happen before they did the firing. So it's actually during the tanking phase, and yeah, we should start by actually talking about what really happened there, like step by step, right?
Yeah, and we've got another image there where the fire looks even bigger. And just to give, I mean, we could make this pretty doom and gloom. And it is a serious thing, as we obviously agree, but we are very grateful this did not happen on the pad, fully stacked, and take
Yes.
out half or all of stage zero with it. Obviously, not ideal. You don't want to see this kind of a boom, which they haven't had an explosion like this on a test bed of any kind, I think, since SN4. So this obviously is much bigger because it was a full Starship section. But yeah, I mean, that was still pretty big and pretty close, but just crazy images there. I mean, if you look at that, it looks it looks like an actual bomb went off, which essentially is not too untrue. But yeah, Elon did put out word this morning. They do have some preliminary data on what happened, and Chris, you can explain that a little better than I can. So curious for that.
Yeah, basically, what we saw in the images when you really like take them frame by frame is that the ship didn't explode like in itself at first, but you rather saw plumes of evaporated gases coming out from the top of the ship. And
Mhm.
as you might know, in the top of the Starship, there are two header tanks, one for liquid oxygen, one for methane. And of course, there are pipes leading up to them so that they can be filled, and also downcomers down to the engines. And at first, we thought that it was likely a rupture in one of these smaller tanks or in one of the lines there, and then gases escaping out. But as Elon posted during the day, that it was actually supposedly a composite tank. So it's a nitrogen tank that is wrapped in carbon composites. These things are usually incredibly sturdy and they just never fail. This is why you use these things. And it looks like we have a failure in one of these tanks. And then this set up like kind of a chain reaction, which means that likely a part from this rupturing tank just split one of the header tanks. Then the gas came out. Then we saw the vapors coming out of the ship. The ship literally ripped open. And then we had a first ignition with a first explosion where the top half of the ship got torn apart. The rest tipped over, ripped as well. And then we had this giant explosion of these 5,000, 5 million pounds of
Yeah.
fuel there. So yes, it was an incredible fireball. The picture that we're seeing on screen right now shows basically the base of this explosion is the size of the Massey's test facility. This was an incredibly huge fireball.
Yeah, and also out there, if you've ever been to Starbase or even just Brownsville or South Padre, there's not a lot to block the sound out there. It is very remote, very flat. Obviously, you have the Gulf right there, so sound travels unencumbered for very long distances. And if you've seen any of the videos of the actual explosion online, you hear that it sounds just like the loudest thunderclap you've ever heard. I'm curious how far away you could hear it from. I'm guessing at least 50 miles away. But we do have, like I said, some pictures of the damage, which I'm sure a lot of y'all are probably here to see. probably thinking, how in the world can Massey's even have any infrastructure left after such a big explosion? We'll throw a few up here right now. Um, as you can see, this to the left, we'll zoom in just a little bit. There, you can see the remains of the nose cone of Ship 36 right there. Hopefully everyone can see that well. And you can see the static fire stand, which, to be quite fair, looks not that bad. I mean, it's a little scorched, should we say? And obviously there is mangled quick disconnect stuff all the way around there. There's debris everywhere.
The
Yeah,
the one thing that really immediately struck me when I saw this picture was that, like, right on the stand where it stood, there's nothing left of Starship. This is really incredible because I thought that since you had an explosion that was literally going to all directions at the same time, you would
mhm,
see like the base of the ship or engines that were being pushed downward into the flame trench. But as
yeah.
it looks right now, there's really nothing on site, and this is before anybody like started cleaning up. I mean, this is like what it's looking an hour ago. These pictures are super fresh, thanks to our photographer Jordan and Redline Halley, who made it possible for this flight to be so quick.
Yeah, and they got a good look. And I mean, you can see just pieces of the nose cone and other sections of tanks have just been yeeted outward into the swamp out here. But yeah, I mean, when you think about Starship, I mean, yeah, it's very intricately developed inside, but so much of that stuff got vaporized or it's just been reduced to tiny pieces of shrapnel. And I mean, when Elon says that they're surprised when the ship doesn't blow up, you kind of assume that's in the air and not on the pad during testing or the launch pad. So this clearly was a surprise. Like he said, I think he even mentioned that this is the first time in this design that this exact failure has happened. So back to the drawing board in that sense. But yeah, this is one of the shots that we have here. I'll throw up another one.
Yeah, one
Um,
thing that is
yeah.
really has to be emphasized here is that it is not a failure of this V2 ship design that we're seeing here. We're seeing a composite tank. That thing is used in tons of different applications. It's something that's usually really reliable, and that is not part necessarily of this design change. So we should not say it's just another one of these V2 problems, and V2s always blow up. That's not the case here. We have something more like a freak accident here, and I would not necessarily say this is due to a failure in the V2 overall design.
They had said too recently in the last mishap report that the before Flight 9, the corrections from Flight 8 had been applied. So Flight 9 had a separate error. And I know they're still ongoing with the Flight 9 investigation. Like I said, though, it's can't really be emphasized enough that they're glad that this happened. I mean, not glad, that's not even the right word, but you'd rather this happen before a full stack than be on the pad. You'd rather it, if something this awful is going to happen, you'd rather it be away from the site. You'd rather it maybe not be at Massey's, but you'd rather it, I guess this is probably the least worst option.
Yeah.
And then they can get back to fixing it. Clearly, we're looking at months of repair here if we can keep going. As you can see, the nose cone. This tent, which is just, I think, north is the orientation we're looking at from the launch pad, probably took the worst of the damage. I don't think really had a clear idea of what was in this tent, but it is completely fried. You can see just pieces of little silver shrapnel along the water right there. There's another booster stand over here that looks a little scorched. The stand on the just if I can scroll up a little bit right here looks scorched. There's a lot of scorching going on in this image. Shouldn't be too hard to figure out why. And you got some burned out stuff down here too, but this is probably where like the worst of the damage is. And there's one more area with some ground support equipment that took some huge damage, but uh,
I just read one question in the chat that is really important to answer, and that is if anyone got hurt. And the good thing is, no,
yeah.
nobody got hurt. Everybody was outside of the safety limits, and the safety limits were chosen properly. That's really the most important outcome here. That it's just hardware. It's tons of work. It was really an expensive accident. It will take months, as you already said, but yeah, it's just equipment.
And the good news is, if you're concerned about booster 18.1, the test tank in the can crusher apparatus, it survived. It was sheltered in the loving
By the
arms
can
of the can
crusher.
crusher. The can crusher protected it. The debris did not get down that far. The images we have here are more of the areas that were directly damaged, and we'll get here. This is probably where the worst happened. This these tanks right here. If you can envision to the right of this is where the static fire stand was. So this is pretty badly damaged. You had a clear fire kind of go out into the brush here. Um, Up here by the flare stack, you can see a piece of a tank is just laying there. So it's going to take a while to fix this. It really will. And obviously, Massey's is a critical part of SpaceX's the Starship program because it's where they're doing the static fires now. It's where they're doing cryoproofing. I don't think you want to fire up any of this at all. Anything down where booster 18.1 is, any kind of cryo testing until it's all fixed. So probably a hold on that for a while. I don't want to speculate too much as to how long, but this is probably where the worst of the damage is. And Chris, what did you think when you saw this?
Yeah, that it's really utterly destroyed. I mean, you can literally see how the fires after the explosions like ate their way through the lines and got into the tanks and blew up the tanks and the vaporizers.
This is a
Yeah,
better image.
now that you just zoomed out, you can see that on the bottom left right now, there the tanks are intact. And there's
Mhm.
lines that are going over there as well. So that part of the farm is still alive, but the part of the farm that was really catering to the actual test stand is destroyed. The only thing that really still looks quite usable is all the way up in the middle of the picture. That's the deluge farm. That's where the water is stored. No,
Yeah.
up on the top border. Yeah,
Yeah, you're right.
yeah. That's the deluge farm. This is where the water is stored and then pumped to cool and protect the flame trench. And that thing still looks pretty good. There's just tanks that are singed, that are scorched black. They have to be checked, obviously, but this part should be still retrievable and still usable. So they will have to build up a new fuel farm infrastructure there, new lines, and rebuild the flame trench. We see that the static fire stand still looks like kind of there. We have to see if that thing is salvageable. It's really thick metal, so the chances are not that bad.
Mhm.
Yeah, but overall, yeah, we need a new test facility.
And it took them a while to get this to operational point, and now you've kind of got us. I mean, there's some encouragement that you can see booster 18.1 down here to the lower left on the image. So, and also the other structure here, it looks like it was fine. But yeah, again, it shouldn't be hard to figure out. This is going to take a while to fix. I know
Yes, but
SpaceX has the ships behind it ready, but again, they need a place to fire to test. So,
yeah, and I mean the one thing that is looking a little bit better than to just start from scratch is you got the concrete, you got the trench itself, yeah, and that is usually stuff that is taken comparatively long because concrete has to cure, and most likely they can still use the foundations, so they are just in quotes building with steel, and yeah, they really have a lot of experience with that. I mean, look at all the tank farms this company has built up in the last 6 7 years over here in Texas, and yeah, they will have to just do another one.
I did see a comment just now. It says, "How about we do the static fires at Pad A?" And they did do that for a while at the suborbital site. That's where we used to see all the static fires back when it was just the suborbital campaign. And I know we would all pile around the streams to watch that. It's just too risky at this point now with all the launch infrastructure there for the actual flights. I mean, like I said, if this had happened at the pad, that's a huge problem. I mean, you're looking at actual like launch infrastructure blown to pieces, and then you're talking about missing not even just one, probably two Mars windows if you're still looking forward to that. So, like this is the reason they use Massey's is to static fire and cryo test. And again, awful that this happened here, and clearly a lot of damage, but you do not want this happening at the pad.
Yeah, when we were theorizing about all this stuff this afternoon, we also thought like, just imagine like an explosion like this right next to the tower. Yeah, you
Yeah.
have way more material that you can tear apart and blow all over the place. Over here, we had a wide open plain. You can see that things have been flattened, but there was not that much that could have been fired away. So yeah, it's a good decision to have a separate test site that is miles away from the launch and from the construction site.
I saw a comment asking if we can zoom into the trench. We will do our best here. Let me fire up this image. So this is probably the best look at the trench. If I zoom in too much, it gets a little choppy, but probably the clearest view. I mean, just mangled. It does not look good. You've got a lot of scorching here. These pipes are done. again, I'm still impressed. The stand is just right there. Like, what? Did something happen? You've got a piece of what looks like a flap right there, kind of in the trench. I don't know if there's raptors like melted into the side of it, below our point of view here. But yeah, the trench itself looks fine. But again, just lots of other damage.
Yeah. Coming back to this stand, you always have to remember how huge this stand is. I mean, we
Mhm.
all have all seen the rollout videos. We have seen videos where Jordan is standing next to this thing and filming up to it, up into it. That thing is really, really, really huge, and it's meant to survive extreme stresses. I mean, it's literally sitting there when they're doing the static fires. There's a lot of energy expected to be absorbed by this thing, and I think that's the reason why there's good chance to just at least salvage the basic structure. That would mean not starting from scratch. And we have seen a lot of scorched metal. I mean, look at the OLM after literally every flight, and
Yeah,
they're really good at
exactly.
refurbishing this. Like it's really hard to hurt solid steel if it's thick enough.
Yeah, and looking forward to pad two, I mean, you've seen the measures they're taking to make that thing essentially impenetrable. Like the base of it is like a medieval fortress. Like it's crazy how thick the concrete and then the steel on top of that is.
Yeah,
Obviously, the flame trench here at Massey's is concrete and steel too, but a lot of that stuff, as you can see, is exposed right next to the stand itself. There's not, a protective barrier around the static fire stand, so you had a lot of things just kind of exposed. And if this did happen, it was obviously never going to be, oh, just a scratch, even though that's what Elon said, which is his way of saying we'll get through it. But yeah. Again, maybe somewhere in the future you have a dedicated static fire stand at the pad. I still don't think that's like the point of the pad. I think that's always going to be an offsite thing. Again, just to mitigate this happening to more critical stuff. Who knows how long it'll be until we see ship 37? Obviously, that's a different subject altogether. They've already rolled it out here to do cryo testing a couple weeks ago, if not last week, if I remember correctly. Um, it may be ready, although they're going to have to check it now to make sure this doesn't happen to that. But you're going to need another site to do it.
yeah. I just saw a couple questions in the chat about if the FAA is going to get involved, and this is a clear no because this is not flight related, so it has nothing to do with them. And in general, this incident is likely not really hindering SpaceX and going further ahead as in flights. I mean, they're having problems now with themselves because they can't test. If they can't test, they can't fly. But it's not like a regulatory thing that will inhibit them.
Yeah, and you made a good point too earlier, emphasizing that this isn't a V2 problem. I know we've kind of been conditioned to think that because the V2s have all ended earlier than a lot of the V1 flights or Block 1 flights. So it's kind of a meme to say that now. But yeah, definitely worth emphasizing that this was an entirely new situation. Now, it'd be nice if there wasn't an entirely new situation that caused a catastrophic failure every flight. If we could get past that, we'd be good. Then we'd be talking about landings and not blowing up the test site. So we'll get there. I was going to mention this too, Chris, and I was saying this to you off stream. I first started watching Starship and SpaceX really kind of like more in depth back in 2020, right after serial number 4 exploded on the suborbital pad. And I didn't watch that stream. I didn't watch that test campaign go up in flames. The first thing I ever saw was SN5, and we always joked that it looked like a flying grain silo. And but like that was one of the first real big milestones of that program was right after to date for Starship the worst failure. So SN4's explosion was a big deal. If people who are here now were around back then, you remember. So there might be people who start watching SpaceX now who have kind of just joined the fun, and the first thing they see is yeah, Ship 36 just taking out the entire launch pad or Massey's. So maybe we'll have a repeat of after this. We get a lot of good things, a lot of good tests, and a lot of successful flights. Good progress in the campaign for a while. So I just, like I said, wanted to mention that because I joined right after watching, not watching, I didn't watch it. I joined after SN4. So that was a big boom. And then we had a lot of fun. So maybe we'll have more fun after this.
Yeah, I mean, the one thing that is perfectly clear at this moment is that this does not mean in any way like the end of the Starship program. Yeah, they are soldiering ahead. They have a lot of hardware that is done or close to being done. They are steaming ahead. It's a big throwback, but they don't have any reason to stop this program. They had a lot of success before we went to V2, and V2 was just on the verge of being fixed, I would say. I think they knew what the problems were by now, and now they just have to deal with it. But since they are financing this entire program by themselves, mainly through Starlink, they have enough money to go by and they can simply move on. The one thing that I seriously doubt is that we will get this Mars window for a flight. I think this is something that might have died tonight. But then on the other hand, it's SpaceX. We never know what they do. We know that they're really increasing the available launch sites by far next year. So once they get into a rhythm of steady launches, they will ramp up really, really fast. And we know that they can do it because we see it with Falcon 9 these days.
Yeah, the thing with SpaceX, like you said, you never can really count them out. I mean, this kind of delay would shelve programs for years if it were someone else. SpaceX is on the verge of unlocking a lot of big bottlenecks with regards to not just production and cadence in that regard, but testing. They've talked openly about moving or having Starship operations at the Cape in Florida. So one prototype and one obviously bad explosion, but one malfunction is not going to derail a program that has the implications that Starship has. Sorry. So we don't even need to think about that because if there was ever an obvious answer to come out of all this, it's that it's not going to stop. It's just going to take a little bit to clean up. They'll reassess. They'll do a lot of damage control. They'll do a lot of checks on 37 and then ships going forward. I'm sure they'll be very careful with Block 3 too, and we're going to keep moving forward. So it just feels kind of like, oh, this is the latest in a string of whatever. But again, like we said before, and we've mentioned this a few times, it's not a V2 problem. It's just what happens during prototype. And this is an experimental rocket at this point. It is fully intended to not be experimental someday. It's fully intended to be like the absolute game changer in all of rocketry. So right now, you have to still remember it's experimental. They are literally testing it out in the open, in full view of the public. Every single potential failure is able to be watched via camera, and that's never been done before with rockets. Like imagine if you had a car and you built a new car, but it wasn't like you just heard about it and then you only saw it when it was done. But you got to watch the crash dummy tests, you got to watch the airbag deployments, you got to see all of the ugliness that goes on when you're slamming it against the wall, the crash dummies getting tossed around, and then you still got to see it at the end when it was finished, but you had already seen all the previous testing. That's what Starship is doing, but with rockets, essentially big rockets with a lot of fuel in them that cause a lot of booms. So the perspective is very different for a lot of people who are not used to spaceflight being in the public eye because all of the testing is public. Like there's cameras everywhere. So this is what happens.
Yeah, I just read in the chat that somebody was proposing that they would have to basically build a second test site. I mean, yes, this is something that I'm pretty sure that they would love to do, but then there is always the big question of where. That's the problem. They have these lots of land that they are using right now, and it's going to be hard to find another location where they can do it. Obviously, in the long run, they will need bigger or more test facilities because with an output or an estimated or planned output of 3 Starships a day, that would also mean we need 3 tests a day, and that would really, really be a huge bottleneck to only have one facility for that.
Yeah, I think clearly they're going to eventually need to build more test sites because if you can only test essentially one Starship at a time, cryo and static fire, then yeah, you're going to be the progress will be measured in trickles. You'll need more and more. Still, the concept of producing 3 Starships a day just blows my mind. Like that's an insane amount of prototypes to even deal with, much less begin testing campaigns on. We do have here, I wanted to bring this picture up because if you needed a little ray of hope out of all this, Booster 18.1, as you can see, very safe and sound. Maybe stuck in the torture ground here, but it was not damaged. And it looks like the crane that, took care of all this, maybe a little scorching. I don't know, Chris, what can you see down there?
I wouldn't say so. I think the fireball just blew over it. It's a ladder structure and it could let the pressure through and it was not knocked over, obviously. So I think it just came through fine. The reason why everything on the right burned down was pretty much because there was flammable material. You see the tent that's completely gone and stuff. It was just in succession went through all these things that it could consume, but it never reached the torture cage. So
The
That's
torture
white
cage.
escape. That's what you just said. Oh, you said
Yeah,
torture
exactly.
crown. Okay, right. So we got the
Yeah.
the can crusher.
It's good that the torture cage also serves as essentially a bomb shelter. I didn't think we'd ever say that, but it looks like it's actually happened here. So let's take a few more looks here at these last few pictures. Obviously, this one's a little bit bright, but we've got the tent here. Um, Again, this was just next to the pad, as you saw earlier. So this is again where a lot of the damage happened. You've got, I don't know if that's a dumpster, that blue thing right there, but completely destroyed. Whoever owned that truck, well, uh, not great. But the
Yeah,
office
you
building
better.
here, I would be curious to see what this wall looks like, you know,
Mm.
maybe on the other side, like looking from here, you know, from the tent toward the office building. Probably would be a little bit of scorching on that, but you know, all this stuff is cooked. So let's go to our last image here. One more look at the actual static fire stand. That's probably our best shot. I'm actually surprised, if I can be humorous here, if you'll let me, that the nose cone didn't go further. I'm surprised that that thing is not half a mile away, with how fierce that explosion was. You've got one of the flaps that just barely made it out of the trench, and then you've got over here to the far right, you've got another piece of the tank over there. But clearly, a lot of damage. Um, Probably normal to feel a little bit discouraged, you know, when you wake up and you see a giant fireball all over X, and then a video of what looks like a bomb going off. And normal to feel all these things. But again, SpaceX has proven anything, especially after SN4. They'll just keep going. They'll make the repairs. Yes, it will take time. And before you know it, we'll be talking about Ship 37 and 38 doing their static fires, probably here. But again, it's probably going to take a little bit.
I just read in the chat that somebody was saying that we should not expect human rating before ship 45. I would actually say put a lot of numbers on that, because we are not even thinking about like human rating yet. The
Yeah.
the actual goal at the moment is to get Starship to a point where it can be used to deploy more Starlink satellites. I mean, this is what finances the program. This is what this huge carrier is super capable of doing. And this is where we will get all the experience to then go ahead and say, hey, come on, we now have 50 consecutive launches. We can now start thinking about human rating. But at the moment, it is really all about getting this system figured out. And really the scale of it is so huge. This is like not like this is the biggest and most powerful rocket that's been built so far. And it's literally something that has to be figured out. And they're not doing everything with simulations up front. This is not SpaceX style. SpaceX style is to go ahead, build it, and try it out, and then learn from it. And yeah, this is an unexpected moment of learning, but still, they will have learned a lot this morning.
Yeah, and I remember I used to think too, like, by what SN number is it going to be human rated? And I like thinking that. I like kind of guessing in my mind, but there's not really an answer because when we get to that point, this part of the campaign will be such a distant memory. We won't even think like, oh, it was, you know, SN 110 where we could really tell. Because I think back to when Falcon was first was first trying to land. SpaceX literally made a blooper tape and put it on YouTube of how to not land a Falcon orbital booster.
Yeah.
And there's 20 or so explosions. But now, I mean, you're looking at they just completed their 500th Falcon mission. They've landed, I think it's hundreds. Like, was it 400 or have they landed? They've flown 500 missions, and we touched on this the other day on an episode. They've landed over 100 boosters. Some of them have been reused 20 times. It was a huge deal when they when they reused one when it landed, you know, back at the pad, and then when they landed on the floating barge for the first time. At that time, it was probably as hard to imagine that they would have multiple boosters with 20 plus flights on them as it is now to imagine what a human rated starship looks like. Like, it will happen, but it's so far. I mean, I'm not trying to say like it's 15 years out. It's because that was only, I mean, we went, you know, a few years between the first landing and then, you know, starting to reuse more and more. But it'll eventually, this whole explosion will eventually feel like nothing. Like, we won't even remember it. But yeah, when it's human rated, that's things are going to be already be fun at that point.
Yeah, I just also read that somebody was asking if they have any other pads there that could maybe retrofit it with flame trenches and stuff, but nope, they don't. This was the one that has a flame trench, and at the moment, they would really have to reconfigure Messi's a lot to even enable to have the space for a second flame trench. And
Mm.
also, you always have to plan the tanking farms and stuff accordingly. We don't know. Maybe this is one of the takeaways from this day that it could be a good idea to just build one in parallel. But at the moment, no, this was the one they had, and yeah, that one is not in a good shape right now.
No, and I like how we're taking questions from the chat too, because clearly a lot of, especially if you're new to watching the channel or even just spaceflight in general, today is probably an interesting first day to join the crowd when something just detonates to this level. I've mentioned this before. SpaceX is clearly the most visible spaceflight company now, and they're. I never would have guessed 15 years ago that we would see a private space company. Like maybe they would be visible in the sense like, okay, what are they doing and how did they mess it up? Like because they haven't accomplished anything, so there's just no script. SpaceX has done more than like any other company ever. And of course they're going to be visible for stuff like this, but they're also going to be visible for when they reuse things successfully and do things that no one else has ever done. So again, this probably, this will make the news today for sure. I know we've already seen that. But yeah, I like how we keep taking questions from the chat. Let's see if we can find a few more here. And Chris, you're doing a good job of being king chat there. So
Somebody's just saying flight 10 still June 31st, right? I think that was meant as a joke, and I
yeah,
must say I'm
looks
very
good.
confident. No, it just flew. It flew this morning. It was fast and in all directions, but no, this one
Someone
is
check the
gone.
FAA
And
alert. It's still on for still on for June 29th at earliest, right? Nothing's
yeah,
changed.
yeah,
I don't know.
sure. Was there any people in Messis? No, there was nobody there. It was all evacuated beforehand, and nobody was hurt.
Yeah, they do a good job of I'm not sure exactly how far away they are from Massey's, but they completely clear the area, obviously, because this side is meant for one thing. Um, But yeah, I mean, if you're just turning this on and you don't know anything about space and you're like, oh, it's a rocket test site. Oh, crap, it all blew up. Yeah, you're probably worried that someone, was in there. Kind of like how the news feels they need to mention that all these test flights are unmanned for some reason. No, they're not manned. No, there's no one around. Everyone's good. But again, good that no one was hurt. Definitely a lot of property damage, though, if we can put it lightly.
Yeah, people are also asking if the cleanup operation already started. These pictures are like an hour old now, maybe an hour and a half, and at that point nobody was out there yet. I think they're evaluating if there's still any danger to go out there, and it will take a while before they will let people in there. We don't know what kind of investigation has to be performed there, so we can just wait and see. And then there will be, of course, internal evaluation by SpaceX how they will go ahead. And once they figured that out, we know that things will start to move there swiftly.
Yeah, and like I said, Jordan was one of the first, if not the first, to get out there in a helicopter and see it. I mean, these photos, like you said, are like maybe an hour old. So I don't know if anyone else has this view yet. So definitely a first look here, and a lot of scorching. I'm actually surprised. So I know there was a picture from I'd seen before that there was a fire break on the Mexican side of the Rio Grande, but it looks like this fire didn't jump the river, which is good. Um, but yeah, a lot of damage. Um, but again, not caused by any means, as far as I'm concerned, from me sitting right here, of long-term discouragement. The Starship program is not ending today, despite what you might read. It's not full of errors, despite what you might read. Uh, tis but a scratch. And Chris, if you have any other insight on some of this damage, like I don't really want to get into like speculation on how long this will take. I'm sure that's a question that people are kind of really wanting to know the answer to, kind of like how long, when flight, when hop. We used to say when hop like crazy back in the suborbital days. Now it's when Massey's back. When will Massey's be back? Um, but yeah,
I think we have to look at month. Just because building
Yeah, at
things
least.
takes time, they need specialized equipment. I mean, of course, this is all stuff that is available out there. It's not super like custom only to this operation, but still they need to figure out what they will need. They need to order it, they need to get it there, need to get it assembled. And yeah, even if they go as fast as they can, a couple months should be minimum there.
And that again is a tremendous explosion. It really
Yes.
doesn't look real. It looks like maybe another news story. It looks just like a war zone. So yeah. I mean, if this happened to a place that I was working at, I don't think I'd be back the next week. I think I'd be back a little while later on in the year. And just to give some perspective too on how far along the test campaign S-36 was. So after Flight 9, we had been moving at an increased pace. And you can make of that what you will. You can say maybe that means they're rushing things. Maybe it means things are not getting checked. And this certainly doesn't do a lot to dissuade that. But the pace was what it is. It was very fast. Ship 36 had already completed its single engine static fire a few days ago. Booster 16 had already done its entire campaign as far as static fires and cryoproofing. It did the cryoproofing here at Massey's. It did the static fire on the pad. And so this was like the one of the final tests, checkouts, not really checkouts, one of the final engine tests for Ship 36 before Flight 10. Like we were probably, it felt like we were less than 2 weeks away from Flight 10.
Yes.
And they were going to ignite all six engines, and they've been doing this for the last couple of ships, keep them on for 60 seconds, and then shut them back off. And I don't, uh, off the top of my head, know if it even got to the point where they were turned on for a few seconds, or if this happened. I'll have to go back and look at the footage later. If this was
No,
just right at ignition when it blew up.
it was not igniting at all. It
Yep.
happened
During.
like moments, or we don't know how far they were away from actually firing, but it happened before the static fire. They never got to it.
Yeah. So, and again, we were, and SpaceX, I think, has just released an update on what's been going on with the flight here. I'll see if I can pull the details on it.
Okay.
It's also going to be on their website too. It's having a bit of an issue with the image sharing. I'll keep that up there, but I can probably read it to you here. Um, all right, so we're going to read this here. It says, after completing a single engine static fire earlier this week, the vehicle was in the process of loading cryogenic propellant for a six engine static fire when a sudden energetic event, I do love these terms they have for basically an explosion, when a sudden energetic event resulted in the complete loss of Starship and damage to the immediate area surrounding the stand. The explosion ignited several fires at the test site, which remains clear of personnel and will be addressed once it has been determined to be safe to approach. Individuals should not attempt to approach the area while safing operations continue. And then I'm reading here, it just says like kind of where it happened. As is the case before any test, a safety zone was established around the test site and was maintained throughout the operation. There are no reported injuries, and all personnel are safe and accounted for. There are no hazards to the surrounding communities in the Rio Grande Valley. Previous independent tests conducted on materials inside Starship, including toxicity analysis, confirmed they pose no chemical, biological, or toxicological risks. So you mentioned that earlier. This is not an ecological threat to the area based on what happened. Even though you might think it would be, they've confirmed that it's not. SpaceX is coordinating. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, this is actually one of these things that is really important to stress that as the Starship actually has very little environmental hazards in it. The fuel that it's burning, the methane, just simply was burned up in the explosion, but it's not like you were having like old school rocket fuels that are super dangerous, super poisonous. And this is
Mhm.
just gas. And the gas combined with the oxygen, this is why we have this huge fireball. And what we're seeing there, the black in the thing that used to be bushes is just burned bushes. And when we
Mhm.
had the picture all the way to the right, you even saw that it didn't even spread like a wildfire. It just was very local, and you don't have to expect any serious hazards there. They will have to go out there and start picking up metal and heat shields. But other than that, I think yeah, the damage is not that bad to the environment.
Maybe some slightly annoyed crocodiles at this point, but you never know. I don't know if there's even crocodiles in the Rio Grande, but if there are, I'm sure they're not super happy. It also does say further than that, engineering teams are actively investigating the incident and will follow established procedures to determine the root cause. Initial analysis indicates the potential failure of a pressurized tank known as a COPV, which we talked about earlier, a composite overwrapped pressure vessel containing gaseous nitrogen in Starship's nose cone area, but the full data review is ongoing. Excuse me. There is no commonality between the COPVs used on Starship and SpaceX's Falcon rockets. So that's all they have now, which doesn't really tell us a lot more than what Elon tweeted earlier today. Basically, it was a COPV. They think it was. Preliminary data showed that it failed below pressure. And then, like Cris said earlier, it was a chain reaction from that point forward. When that part fell, then the rest of the tanks lit up too. So that's the official word now from SpaceX here on the issue. Maybe we'll learn more in the next few days. I don't know, Cris, what do you think about it? Because we mentioned before that this is a new issue. Elon even said this has not happened with this design ever. If you're and again, put on the SpaceX engineer hat for a second. If that's you, are you happy that this is a brand new issue that you get to figure out? Or are you annoyed that it's not something that you thought you had fixed? I mean, what's the preferred? Again, nothing about this is preferred, but what are you thinking right now knowing this?
At the moment, I would say that I would be probably a bit happy that it was a component that is not inherent in the base design of the ship. It's something that is a tank that is used in a lot of applications, and usually these tanks are incredibly sturdy. But then again, composite materials also have the problem that they are quite fragile when it comes to like scratching or dents or anything. You can really easily destroy a few fibers that will then offer a weak point. And when you have a weak point in a pressure vessel, you know what's going down. And the interesting thing is we just had a static fire test with this system with a single engine just a
Mhm.
couple days earlier, and it didn't happen
Mhm.
there. So
Yeah.
this also it would be still coherent with a little material failure because you pressurize, you depressurize, and each time you weaken it a bit more. Yeah. So I must still say I am super happy that this happened here today on the test stand and not like a couple weeks later on the pad, on the OLM, on the fully filled booster, because that would have been really catastrophic.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
And
this one was, but it's a different scale.
imagine this, but maybe 3 times more powerful if you're talking about the added fuel of a booster on top of it. And then not only that, but think about what's around you getting damaged. You're talking about the chopsticks probably getting blown clean off. You're talking about the tower probably taking heavy damage, all of the plumbing, all of the tank farms. Just, I mean, the best way I can phrase that is think back to Flight One and how much damage that thing did to the
Yes.
entire pad. I mean, there's pictures. It dug a tunnel under the rebar of the
Yep.
launch mount. Like there is exposed rebar from the like I don't know how the launch mount didn't fall over. Like it just
Yeah, one leg was
completely
literally in the air. Yeah.
it it was crazy. And I mean, you're talking obviously a blast of both these tanks would be a different directional force, but it would never there'd be nothing good about it. So you're talking about that, but then all around. So but SpaceX did repair that damage from Flight One. It took them a long time. So I don't know, maybe your litmus test for how long this will take to repair. Just look at Flight One. Look at the maybe that's not even the best. I'm just spitballing, and I don't want to spitball too much, but
I think that when we compare it to Flight 1, there's one major difference. And in
Mhm.
Flight 1, we had severe damage to the foundation and to the concrete. This
Yeah,
is exactly what we don't have in this case.
true.
Yeah, because when you
Good
look at
point.
it, the stuff that is still intact, seemingly, is the concrete. I don't think that there's much more to do than patching when it comes to the concrete alone. So the basic shell is there. If the stand can be salvaged, that will be pretty swift in being ready again because they just have to take it over to the build site. They have to sand it down, and then they have to get all the mechanics in there again. But they still will have the basic structure, and yeah, we will see how they move from there. But as I said, it's not the end of the world. It's not the end of the program, and we will see some hectic activity starting there once they figured out how they're gonna rebuild it.
Yeah, and I did see someone in the chat. Just skimming this here. I did see a couple of funny things. I saw someone say, "I bet that guy is not happy that he picked that time to light the match in the porta potty." Probably right, because Yeah, that's just not the best timing for that at all. And someone actually did just say too, it doesn't look that bad considering the size of the explosion in the videos. Also, being at night, it looks 10 times scarier. I mean, it would look terrifying in the day, but it also looks, really scary at night too. Someone else just said, I think that's Jordan in there. Supine Duck. Hi, Zach. Hi, Chris. Hello. Hope you didn't
Hi.
get air sick today. But we again, we've covered a lot of this. The concrete does look remarkably good. I don't see many cracks, if any, at all. The only kind of area, and if you look here, I'm going to try and annotate on this with the screen viewer here. I don't know if y'all can see this. Maybe right here, you've got a little bit of damage. Um, but again, concrete looks fine. Your other equipment does look mangled. I'm going to erase that now. There we go. And yeah, you're not going to have to redo the entire foundation of Massey's, which is good. Everything that's damaged is on top, is replaceable. It's still going to take a while, but you can get that done a lot quicker than having to pour another however many tons of concrete at this place. So
Yeah, the
that's why they
pouring is
pour
not
so
the
much
best
concrete.
thing. The curing, the time that it takes for the
Oh
concrete
yeah,
to be fully usable. And I
yeah.
think this is really the big change there, because that's what we had at the OLM. We had to bring in new rebar, we had to bring in new concrete, and it had to cure,
Mhm.
it had to set. And then of course we started building the shower head and everything. But still,
Yeah.
I really think that this is fixable. This will be fixed, and we will see the next flight this summer, definitely.
Yeah. And like I said, it probably feels like forever now. Everything feels a little hopeless. And if you're just joining us to a brief rundown of what happened last night, Ship 36 is undergoing or about to undergo its full six engine, 60-second duration static fire. The same thing they did with Ship 35, where you turn on all six engines, all three sea level, all three Raptor vacuums, and you leave them on for 60 seconds. Then you shut it down. They were starting to do that campaign last night. It's the last thing Ship 36 had to do with regards to engines that we know of. They had already done a successful single engine static fire a few days before. It had gone fine, like Chris said. Everything was fine. There was no issue with the COPVs in that flight that we knew of. During the buildup, apparently a COPV in the nose cone. I think Elon's words were it tested below pressure and it failed. And then that just started a chain reaction. And if you see the explosion, it looks like it unzipped. And then the chain reaction eventually took out the lower tanks too. And you had a massive, massive fireball.
The interesting thing is this unzipping motion happens even before the actual explosion started. This is, I think, where you can really see the pressure, where you see when you imagine that you got this pressure tank and it just ruptures, and then the entire payload bay of the ship is getting pressurized, and then you see this ripping open motion. Yeah, it was really, really interesting to see how it just slid open from top to basically past the dispenser door, and then the top just toppled and fell over. I think this is also the reason why you still have the nose cone laying there, because it
Mhm.
literally fell off before the huge explosion. It was a victim of the first one.
I did see a comment just now. And by the way, that's what it looked like when the unzipping was finished. It looked like that. So I did see a comment just now. It says, why are we having such a harder time than Apollo with stuff like this? I would say, so one of my favorite movies growing up was Apollo 13. And there was a tragic incident with Apollo 1. There was a fire in the test capsule, killed all the
Yeah.
astronauts. And obviously, Apollo succeeded after that. They were able to fix it. I think the hatch was the thing they couldn't get open during that fire. Um, Apollo was also not 24/7 streamed to the internet all the time. I imagine if they did make their testing that viewable to everyone all the time, we would have probably had a lot of questions about them as we're having about SpaceX right now. Like, why is this failing? Why did this happen? Why did this happen? So I always say the SpaceX effect is good and bad because we've never seen in real time a rocket be developed in public view. It's never
Yeah.
happened. And it's messy. It's hard. I know a lot of spaceflight fans love to play Kerbal Space Program, and it's a lot of fun. And I've tried it a few times. Um, but like it's very hard to do. Even just playing that game is hard to do. So the actual thing is even harder to do. And especially when we're privy to every single test. I mean, I don't remember ever thinking, "Oh, I'm excited for the rocket engine test fire today. I know it's going to be viewable. I know we're going to get to see everything that happens." and then, there it is. So it's unprecedented how much of the testing process of Starship you can see. Falcon was pretty viewable too. Like I said, all the reflight attempts and stuff like that. But Starship is unprecedented in so many ways. We talk about it all the time. There's so many things that can go wrong during rocket testing. They're testing it, like we've said in our episodes, like throwing paper airplanes. Like, oh, that one curved a little bit to the left. Let me crumple it up. Try this one. You throw 10 before you know it, but you've got 9 crumples of paper, laying in your room. These are rockets. It's the same iterative kind of philosophy. So instead of a piece of crumpled up, construction paper on your floor, you've got, mangled steel and a scorched static fire stand and some burned out ground equipment. So it's what happens. Like I said, I'm curious how they're going to recover from this. I think we'll see rapid progress. I think we'll see them clean this up a lot faster than maybe we're anticipating now. Like I said, today's kind of the morning day. I think in about a week we'll look back and think, okay, wow, they've picked that up pretty good.
Yep. We'll just have to get over the hangover period. That's that's all there is to do. Yeah, we will of course cover this further. You will have more information on this on the next episode, and yeah, we'll keep our eyes open. We are just like you, super interested in finding out what happened here, finding out how things are starting to pick up again, how we can get going again, and how things will go from here. So we'll keep you updated. And this was the first time now that we actually got to do a full stream here, and we will be back next week.
And we wish that it was under better circumstances. And we are also going to be firing up the 24/7 stream again very soon here too, Chris.
Yes,
And I know
it's
you're
back.
excited about that.
Yeah, it will be back after this stream. You will be automatically pushed forward into the live stream after our stream here. So it's back. You can finally see rockets in real time. I mean, at the moment you can see empty pads, but this will change, of course, again. You will see things happening because something is happening at Starbase every day.
Yep, and I did see an encouraging comment just now in the chat said they probably already have a plan. Exactly. And I think it will be someone just said, I think it'll be cleaned up fast. And there you go. The positivity is already returning to the chat. We're already got the good vibes going back again.
Yes, somebody also just wrote, rocket science is beautiful, elegant, and very messy. True
Very
that.
messy. Exactly. It really is crazy hard. We expect a lot of things to come easy. There is always a plan. Mr. Cool said it correct. And he has the Starman logo there. I like it. Yeah, there's always a plan. The plan is to clean this up and make sure that there's not another fireball for the foreseeable future. And if there is, maybe it's far away, maybe not on land. Like I said, Elon has always said it's a surprise when it doesn't explode, but let's try and keep those explosions in the air. But they will be right back at it before you know it, and it'll be just as fun to watch then as it is now and as it has been in the past. So Chris has mentioned the 24/7 streams coming back right after this, and we are excited to have you all get to see that again. And the next news episode will have a lot of details on this. Like I said, a lot to cover here. Definitely took us by surprise, happened out of nowhere. Not the result we wanted to see for the static fire. I know we were hoping to see Flight 10 by the end of the month. It was really looking like there might have been a chance. As you can see
Absolutely.
also too, the launch pad is unbothered. They look like they maybe like, did you hear that? And now they're fine. So the chopsticks
I
did a salute.
I did look through the footage of last night, and you can really see it in the background. You have pitch black sky, and then like a frame later, you have bright orange. It was not to be missed.
It was not to be missed, and it will not be forgotten for a while. So
Yeah, definitely.
we appreciate all you guys joining us, everyone joining us here today. Again, I am Zach. This is Chris. We are the two script writers for What About It? And we will be script writing this for a little bit. This will be script written,
Of course. Yes, it
very
will
much
be.
script written into the next episode. Again, we will try to not dwell on the bad, but it obviously happens, so we want to cover it. But hope you guys have enjoyed the stream. And like I said, stay tuned for the 24/7 stream after this, and we'll move forward.
See you guys next week. Thank you for watching.
Thank you for watching.